What's up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Processing Blue, where what do we do, Mike?
We process blue for you.
That's right. He's Mike Kaye. I'm Alex Zietlow, and we are Carolina Panthers beat reporters for the Charlotte Observer. We got a great show for you today. We're going to talk about Bryce Young's best game of 2025, Rico Dowdle's back-to-back performances of a lifetime, the defense playing well, who is coming back on the injury front, and much, much more. But first, Mike, I'm dying to ask. You are finally covering a 500 team at this newspaper. How does that make you feel?
I mean, the same way it does pretty much anywhere I've covered a 500 team. I mean, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. I mean, I've been spoiled by an AFC title run. 3 out of 4 seasons in Philly was a playoff run. So, this is an interesting wrinkle in what I've covered. I don't know. I mean, I still remember the Wilkes 6-6 run. So I guess,
right.
I don't know. I mean, it's all pockets. Now, the big one will be this weekend. Can they get over 500? I think that's the one where you're kind of like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. And so I think, it's groovy. They're getting into a groove, and, they got a 2-game winning streak, but they can't do what they did last year when they had a 2-game winning streak and feel themselves and then offer up a big letdown. So we'll talk about that later in the podcast, but that's the fine print on this 3-3 start is cool. Get to 4-3.
Right. They proved that they're a 500 team for the first time since November 2021, the Cam Newton I'm back game. And now next week, they got to prove that they are a winning team, which hasn't happened for a long time as well. But before we get into the Jets game, let's recap this Cowboys game, which was, like, from an offensive perspective, let's dive into the offense, was a really productive day. We're going to talk about Bryce Young and Rico Dowdle, just running down their days real quick. Bryce Young, 17 of 25 for 199 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, a passer rating of 114.8. And that pass rating is really only diminished because the ball bounced off of Teteroa McMillan's hands and caused an interception. You got Rico Dowdle's day, 30 carries for 183 yards, 4 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown. That's 293 yards from scrimmage. Mike, he is now the 5th. He's now 5th in rushing yards in the league after pretty much only being pretty much a backup. I know they were splitting carries 60-40, 70-30, but pretty much being a backup the first 3 weeks of the season or first 4 weeks of the season. And now he is 5th in the league in rushing yards, which was just pretty crazy. And he's really not that far behind the third place guy, Bijan Robinson. Bijan has 484 yards and Dowdle has 472. I can talk a lot about Rico Dowdle's accomplishments. I mean, he has so many. He obliterated records from Christian McCaffrey. He's the first undrafted rookie since 1970 to compile at least 200 yards from scrimmage in consecutive games. Whatever. We don't need to go in all on his wonderful milestones. Is there anything that you can add to Rico Dowdle's run right now? Because it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, and it has. I don't want to take away anything that he has done. This offensive line, even without Taylor Moden last week or this Sunday, has been exceptional as a group. They've had their, individual quirks. They've had their moments where they've had letdown blocks. But I would say this offensive line, the tight end group, have really carried this running game pretty heavily. I mean, Rico Dowdle had over 80 yards before contact in this game. Like, that's pretty wild. There were holes that I'm pretty sure Scott Fowler could have ran for 5 yards through. I mean,
you're not going to say Alex Zietlow? Alex Zietlow couldn't do that?
I think, okay, as our resident expert in irony and funniness,
okay,
Scott Fowler running for extra yardage is funnier than you running for extra yardage.
I mean, maybe though, but we get into this debate with me and my friends all the time. Could you gain 20 yards in the NFL? And that includes if you're injured or whatever. I always say no, it's impossible. But no, it's impossible. Back on that. Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, I think this offensive line has done a really nice job. I think Brady Christensen at right guard, Cade Mays at center have really heightened the running game. I think both of them have played well just overall. Christensen's been, a straw stirrer. I mean, a straw that stirred the drink for this offensive line. I think Damian Lewis is the most underrated player maybe on offense.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ike Ekwonu, they've played to his strengths as a run blocker. And I think Josh Nijman deserves a lot of credit. But we've also said he's a more natural right tackle, and you saw what he did in this game. I thought he did a terrific job. Much better than when he was at left tackle in week 1. So I think, all things considered, this O-line deserves a lot of credit, and I understand it's easy to kind of lose them in the sauce because Rico's breaking tackles and he's doing all this stuff. I wrote that he's been electric in space and tough as nails through contact. And that's a great combination to have. And I think, look, he deserves more attention. That's what this is. And I think we'll talk about this a little bit later on when we talk about some roster shuffling with the offensive line, with running back, with wide receiver, because there's a lot that's kind of intriguing moving forward, especially with guys coming back from injuries.
Definitely.
But I think his vision and his competence as a runner has been tremendous. He's set up his blocks well. He's let blocks form, and that's led to success. He's been very patient with how he's attacked. I know in practice, it looks like he's just surging through a bunch of bodies or surging through space. But I think he has been very smart in how he's approached his efforts as a runner. And frankly, he's impressed as a pass catcher as well.
Was this Bryce Young's best day?
It was his Emmy tape of 2025 so far, for sure. Mm-hmm. He was terrific. I mean, he made one bad throw all day, in my opinion. Even when he missed, they were fine throws. That interception should have been caught. This was the first turnover of his 8 that wasn't, you wouldn't put, I think all of his turnovers, he has at least 55% culpability, right? This one, I don't think he had any culpability whatsoever. And, I was impressed by the way they bounced back. We saw the mic'd up from the Dolphins game where he basically he never got high, he never got low. I think that plays into it. He reminds me of classmates that I had in college. I'm the type of person who wants to write essays or papers or study way far in advance. So I just get it off the plate, out of my mind, right? He's a guy who feels like he is writing the paper up until 2 hours before class and thrives on that type of adrenaline and pressure, right? Because if you look at it, all but one of his wins have been comeback or close game, final drive sort of wins. We saw him, his very famous Iron Bowl performance against Auburn. I mean, there is something that happens when he has to dig himself out of a hole. And while that's not necessarily healthy and not really sustainable over, a career probably, we're noticing that when push comes to shove, he can be very clutch. And I think if this running game can play well. I mean, I don't think this running game is sustainable just because they're not going to play the Dolphins and the Cowboys
right
week. I think he showed you that he can we talked about it last week, that he's not raising the offense or whatever. And I think the running game made it so that he could perform at a different level, right? Play action fakes, performing an empty, so you could sell out on certain things. So you think, maybe he's going to run. Listen, I thought Dave Canales called a masterclass of the game too. I really do. I thought you really started to see, I've talked about this being an elementary offense. It evolved quite a bit. Especially pre-snap and from a blocking scheme standpoint. he's right when he says, execution's a problem. It is, because we've seen this team execute pretty efficiently over the last 2 weeks, and it's led to great results. And so I think this was probably as succinct of a game plan and a performance as we've seen from Canales and Young this year, maybe ever. I mean, I know Atlanta gets a lot of love, but the efficiency of Bryce in this game was really impressive.
And this game was consequential. Like,
right, yeah.
There's still so much possibility for this Panthers team still. Now the Tampa Bay Bucks are looking really, really good, and that does not bode well for the Panthers when it comes to trying to compete for the division. But when it comes to just stacking wins and stacking confidence for this offense, that's really big. I wanted to hit on one last Bryce Young thing. That final drive, 15 plays, 6:07 off the clock to ultimately set up a pretty pretty close field goal for Ryan Fitzgerald that ultimately sailed through as time expired. I thought Bryce was really good on that final drive. Yeah, hot take, I know. That fourth down play call, Canales just wants him with the ball. He wants Bryce to be the decider. He might have said that in words previously in previous seasons, or I guess last year, but there's a belief that's different. I can't. It's tough to articulate. I mean, we can talk about how much time he has to throw and his average depth of target as long as we want. But like that final drive, there was this belief where it was like, oh, Bryce Young can win a game on his own right now. I'm not sure. Personally, I'm not sure I've ever felt that way. Had you felt that way going into the final drive? Did you think, hey, Bryce Young can go out and win this when they were about to go on that final drive?
Yeah. I felt like the momentum was there, especially with the run game. I thought they would be very run centric. The fourth down play when they went empty, I was like,
what's going on? Uh-oh.
I thought he was going to run, and I think they did too. And I think that's why it was so effective to throw that quick strike to Hunter Renfrow, his lone, catch of the game.
Why you got to say that?
No, I think
I know.
No. I want to get into this because I think there's something cool about the functionality of this offense and that they are spreading the ball around. And I think that's also helping Bryce be a little bit more efficient, right? Like they're throwing to Tommy Tremble, they're throwing to Mitchell Evans, they're throwing to Bryson Tremaine, although not really in this game. They're throwing to Xavier Legette. They're throwing to
Jimmy Horn,
Tetsuo McMillan. Like he's constantly spreading the ball to 6 to 7 to 8 wide receivers a game, and so you're not keying in on a guy being a true possession receiver. And I think that'll change maybe a little bit once Coker's back, because I think he will be the guy who's underneath a lot, and he will probably get the Thielen share of the workload. But I think that plays into it, right? Like you're expecting him to either run or go to T-Mac, and instead quick strike to Renfrow, right? Because you have off coverage and you can hit him right away. And frankly, we've talked about it before. If Renfrow has a strength, it's finding a cushion in small spaces, right? Like after small yardage. And I think when you have a smaller quarterback, it's harder to see smaller targets. But when you see a guy who's wide open in the slot, essentially off the jump, and you need that yardage, I thought he made a great decision. I thought he made a great throw. Renfrow, good on him for catching it. I don't think that's what iced the drive, really. I thought it was the 9-yard run by Rico Dowdle where Damian Lewis pulled while it left and basically, set them up for a 2nd and 1 and then
pummeled some.
Yeah, look, I think what we're seeing is when this run game is dominant and enforcing its will, it impacts every aspect of this team, right? Special teams is playing with more vigor. The passing game can still play action fakes. The running game can control the clock. The defense isn't exhausted because they're not dealing with a bunch of stalled short drives. even the passing defense after a while can catch up because the pressure is on the other team, right? Like, it's one thing to give up a bunch of yardage in the second and third quarter, but when it comes to crunch time, who's tired? The opposing, or bewildered, the opposing team, right? Because the other team is running the ball. They're not able to create momentum. They're on the sideline for a really long time. And so that plays into the defense. So look, I can't praise the offensive line and the blocking enough, but I think Bryce Young had himself a day, and Dave Canales deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah. Love what you said about how this run offense impacts the rest of the team, because the Panthers have won the last 2 games by running the ball well and then stopping the run. And if you can do those 2 things, that's about as sustainable of a trend as you have in the NFL. Just to put some numbers to this defense, the Panthers now are 10th in opponent yards per game, in allowing opponent yards per game. They are only giving up 308.3 yards a game, which surprised me. They are 12th in third down conversion percentage. They're letting teams get their third down conversions 38.24% of the times. I thought that those 2 stats were nuts to me when I looked them up this morning. The last 2 games specifically, they've only given up 50 rushing yards, 19 against the Dolphins and 31 against the Cowboys. I know that a lot of these numbers, particularly the scoring defense, was going to be inflated a bit because of that shutout win against the Atlanta Falcons. But like, these are yardage totals. These are like legitimate like stats. I mean, that weren't particularly impacted by that Falcons game. And I asked Princely Umanmielen yesterday, I was like, could you imagine that this defense week 1 could go on a streak like this where they're playing this well and playing the run this well? And he was just like, man, I look back on week 1 and I don't even know how that happened. I don't even know how that 200-yard game happened, because this is who we are. And I don't know, Mike. What, like, is it a scheme thing? Is it just a basic execution thing? They're finishing tackles, they're setting edges, they're filling gaps. Like, I saw you in the locker room talking to Nick Scott for a while. Has it been a safety thing where they're coming up and doing their crack, replace fundamentals, all these things? Like, do you have an answer for why this defense is so good against the run against these last 2 teams?
Well, I think the corners are playing their part in it. Like, you're seeing them fill gaps. You're seeing them be pretty engaged in the run defense. Like, J.C. Horn, even, in that first drive, you can kind of see him tentatively set the edge. And I think, there's a buy-in. I think this team knows that when they stop the run, they put the offense out of sequence. And look, I mean, when you can't pick up rundowns early, when you can't pick up rushing yards early, you're going to be out of sequence. So you're in 3rd and 7, or you're 3rd and 8, or what have you. And so your likelihood of getting a first down is significantly less. And remember, we've talked about this. This scheme favors cornerbacks and coverage. So if you can be a run-stopping team on 1st and 2nd down, you're going to have a lot of success on 3rd down, because teams don't need to pick up a small chunk of yardage. I think Derek Brown's been sensational. I think A'Shawn Robinson has been versatile and very effective. Nick Scorton, I got to tell you, every time I watch him, he is in the right spot. And I think that's a combination, based on talking to teammates, a combination of a quick processing brain and a lot of hustle. Princely Umanmielen, who had mostly been a 3rd down guy through the first month of the season, he's getting some early down looks. He had a great run stop coming across the other side of the line to stop a guy from behind, because he saw the play the whole way. I think this defense is playing smarter. I think they're playing as more of a unit. It's not an individual sort of thing. And when you play zone as much as they do, that's beneficial. I think understanding what Merrick's strengths are and using him effectively, like, they use a lot of combinations. They'll be in dime personnel with him at linebacker. They'll be at dime personnel with Wallace at linebacker. They'll move guys around. They'll do all these different things in coverage or pre-snap, and I think that that's really impressive. They're not playing outside their scheme. They've done all this stuff. They're just putting in the right mixture and the right chemistry. I think Trevin Wallace and Roseboom switching responsibilities has been almost a revelation for this team. Like the last 2 games, they've been terrific.
Mm-hmm.
Rose Boom, if you compare this game to Arizona or to New England, it's like a night and day.
Mm-hmm.
I think the same thing you could say about Trevin Wallace and Jacksonville to this game, right? And so I think, I said this before, and they didn't really kind of confirm it when I talked to him, but to me, I think Trevin Wallace being able to put his hand on everything, I think they're 2 different learners, right? Like, I think if Trevin's hands-on and he understands what everybody else is doing, he's able to play fast. I think for Rose Boom, not having to worry about everything else helps him play fast, right? Like, there's,
Yeah.
not everybody learns the same way, not everybody functions the same way, and I think that's been to their benefit. I mean, I think Ejiro Evero deserves a lot of praise. I mean, I think, yes, he deserves his lumps too, but I think he's really, if you watch the games, he's putting guys in positions to make plays. I think everybody's kind of stepping up. This defense that they've put a lot of money into this offseason, all the new guys are stepping up. Patrick Jones has played relatively well. I think, Squirtin and Uman Milan are future stars in this defense. And I think, early on, the coverage issues were pretty bad. We've praised Lathan Ransom a lot. He had some hiccups. I think, Mike Jackson probably had his worst game as a Panther. George Pickens isn't an easy cover anyway. And then I think, JC was kind of up and down, but for the most part, look, this run defense, they were able to mix and match personnel. They were able to do certain things. And I think stopping the run is key. If you talk to any defensive coordinator, they want to stop the run first. And you see why, because when a team can only pass, even if you can't get a pass rush, but you can cover well, they are in trouble, right? And so I think that's what they've done. And I think that I don't think the run offense or run defense are particularly sustainable. You're not going to hold teams to 19 to 31 rushing yards every week, and vice versa. You're not going to rush for 200 yards every week. But I do think if you can find a way to level out to where maybe you're only allowing 75 to 100 yards rushing a game and you're running for 170 yards per game, you're going to have a lot of success and you're going to win ball games.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything is rosy right now. In many ways, as you detailed, obviously there are some things. Normally when we talk about injury news and guys coming back, at least the past 2 seasons, that has been a spawn for hope. I think this week when we talk about the guys coming back, it kind of sparks an interesting discussion of how the Panthers are going to manage this roster going forward. So who will be coming back this week, or who potentially could be coming back? Jatavian Sanders, who started as tight end 1, he has been practicing the past couple weeks. He was out with an ankle. He was never on the injured reserve. So they don't need to necessarily make they don't need to make a new roster spot for him, but they do for a couple other guys. Among them, Jalen Coker. He had a quad injury at the beginning of the year. His 21-day practice window opened last week, which means he's still on the injured reserve and doesn't count toward the 53-man roster. He, according to Dave Canales, is really close to returning. Austin Corbett, he suffered a knee injury against the Arizona Cardinals. He on Wednesday, so today, if you're listening to it when this episode comes out, his 21-day practice window is officially open. So, and he was the starting center at the beginning of the season, which will make for interesting talking points. Chuba Hubbard, calf injury. It was kind of a question if he was going to play this week. Like, it was kind of a possibility that he'd play this week. Now he's even closer to recovery this week, against the Jets. And then you got Turk Wharton, who is sidelined with the toe. And we talk about how great this defensive line has been playing with this rotation. Him coming in will be interesting too. I want to talk about the 3 offensive guys, though, Mike, and how these roster implications. Let's start with Jalen Coker.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably, I don't want to be too speculative because we haven't talked to Dave Canales yet, but it just seems like he's ready to go against the Jets this week. But you got to make a spot for him to be on this 53-man roster. Do you have a prediction as to what happens?
I don't have a prediction of who the roster move is, but I do have a pretty good feeling that the person who will be slighted by it is Hunter Renfrow.
Oh, yeah.
And here's my logic, and I'm sure a bunch of Clemson fans are going to jump in the messages and do what they're going to do. But I wrote this on Twitter, and I'm the day of, even before he caught the pass. So and I doubled down afterwards. So you've got McMillan. I don't think they're going to quit on Leggett. So that's two guys. You've got Coker coming back, who's going to take the bulk of the slot and Z reps. And I'm sure he and Leggett will flip-flop quite a bit. So there you go. So those are your top three guys. Then you've got Bryson Tremaine, who has been terrific as a blocker.
Mhm.
Terrific. He's even getting praise from like Dan Orlovsky. And he's also probably their second best special teams player. And then you got Jimmy Horn, who I think adds another element to this team. I think you saw it on the 34-yard catch. I think he is a guy who affects the pre-snap motion significantly more than anybody else, just because you have to respect his speed, even if you don't respect his route running ability, which I think is developing. And so those are the five guys that I would think would be heavily influenced in the offense. Yes, Hunter Renfrow's been the safe punt returner.
Yeah.
But I like, is that worth a roster spot, right? Like you're typically only going to keep 5 wide receivers active, maybe 6. But if you do, you're keeping him just to be the safe punt returner. Like I don't know what the upside is there, right? So you also, if you're going to do that, you're probably slighting James Mitchell, right? Or DJ Dallas, right? Like, so if you're keeping a 6 wide receiver, you're either keeping 3 tight ends when Jatavian Sanders comes back, or you're keeping 3 running backs.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think DJ Dallas, they clearly like him as a kick returner. They clearly think he can pass block on third down. They're still dealing with the injury of Chuba Hubbard. Running back's the most injury-prone position. And Dallas has return experience, right? So I don't know if that makes a ton of sense. And then you look at, tight end. I think James Mitchell's played really well on special teams. He's been a very good third blocker and third team personnel. He's caught the ball cleanly when targeted. I don't know. I would rather have 4 tight ends or 4 running backs than 6 wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
And so, especially with the way they're parsing things out. And so, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that's the logic. I don't know if that's the right decision. None of us really know. I mean, nobody can figure out this team, let alone us.
Just generally. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I would think that Renfrow would get the short straw on this one. And I mean, he's been fine enough. I just think he's been so slow against man coverage, and you're going to face that pretty regularly. I think he's not been particularly effective as a move the ball type of guy. And I think, you want to open up reps for Coker. That's the reason why you traded Adam Thielen, is you thought Coker could be that, possession wide receiver. And so now here's his time. Now, maybe they keep 6 active for this game just because, you are monitoring whether Coker has the endurance and all that stuff. But to me, long-term, I think Hunter Renfrow is the guy who's going to take the brunt of this, because you have to have Tremaine on special teams. He's just too good.
Yeah. No, that logic is sound. I want to get to Austin Corbett, because he is an interest point for this fan base.
Sure.
His 21-day practice window opened on Wednesday. And so here's the starting offensive line last week against the Cowboys. From right to left, Josh Nijman, Brady Christensen, Cade Mays, Damian Lewis, Ike Ekwonu. 3 of the 5 guys last week were not starters. Now, we know that Taylor Moton, right tackle Taylor Moton, will likely play, or at least that's what Dave Canales indicated to us on Monday, as he's battling back from this elbow injury. But still, that's the offensive line that you're rolling with. Austin Corbett comes back into the mix if he gets healthy after starting at the center spot to begin the season. What happens here? Do you immediately replace him with Cade Mays, who has done really quite well and has seen this offense, has like been supervising this offense as they've really taken off? Do you against starting with the Falcons game and then so on? Do you put Austin Corbett at right guard? That's his natural position. Let's not forget that. That's like where he made his money in Cleveland and in where he won the position he played where he won a Super Bowl with the Rams and where he was among the best players for this Panthers team when he first got to Carolina. Do you move him to right guard and keep Cade Mays at center? But Brady Christensen's playing well at right guard. Or do you just not worry about it for the moment because Austin's going to need some time? He's probably going to use most of that 21-day window before he gets activated. So, these are all just like questions that I'm sure this front offense is kind of balancing right now. Is this too early to talk about it, Mike, or do you already have some logic in your own head?
Well, I think the internal messaging will be like, let's let it play out, right? Like,
Right.
I got a mailbag question: is Cade Mays the future at center? I said it's a wait and see thing, right? Like, the small sample size of 4 games is really not something you could be like, let's crown the guy. Offensive line has its ups and downs, and I think right now, if you said Austin Corbett's coming back onto the field tomorrow as like an active player, I would say I wouldn't move Brady Christensen or
Cade
Mays out of this lineup. Not for anybody, not even for Robert Hunt. Like I really think they've found their chemistry there. Now, let's say Dave Canales said something to the effect of he thought that Taylor Moton was only going to be sidelined with the elbow injury for a week. If that persists, then you say to yourself, well, why would you? I mean, Nyman worked out really well last week. Wouldn't you want to further build the chemistry there? Had Corbett been playing lights out before he got injured, I'd feel a little more intrigued. I don't know, man. Cade Mays, when he has been in there, the offense has really flowed effectively.
The pass protection communication seems really fluid and really good.
Yeah, I'm not moving Cade Mays outside of like 2 bomb performances in a row. If that. Like, I think Cade Mays is the guy, especially if they're going to run the ball as frequently as they want to. He'd be the guy. I think right guard, I think Brady Christensen's played phenomenally the last two weeks and really in both points of the spectrum. And so he's been kind of volatile as a pass blocker and as a run blocker during his career. Like, you'll see games where he's just dominating and then other games he's not matching up well. And so I wonder if there's an opening there, but I don't know, man. I think Brady Christensen's playing really, really well. I'm glad we don't have to make the decisions, I mean, it's like one of those things where if Christensen and Mays keep playing this way, then it's like, well, then what do you do moving forward? Like, it's just, you don't want to get ahead of yourself, but they're playing really, really well. And like I said earlier, Damian Lewis and Ike Ekwonu are playing really well on the left side. Moton's played well when healthy. I thought Nijman played very well this past weekend. Like, it's a good problem to have. I mean, Corbett can back up all 3 interior spots. I mean, maybe he takes a backseat and becomes the Christensen that they, for the interior.
I mean, oh man, I think I hear the phrase "good problem to have" in my nightmares. And I was gonna segue that into the Chuba Hubbard Rico Dowdle thing, but if you have more to say on the offensive line, go for it.
Well, the one thing I would say is I agree with you. I thought in 2022, Austin Corbett was their best player on the team, on the offense, period, done, nothing. There's no, you couldn't argue against that in my opinion. But he's also had, 3 or 4 major injuries since then, and I think they've taken their toll. I also don't think center was a natural fit for him. I didn't like it when that was the idea that brought up, but that was kind of the only place to put him. And I think he would play better at right guard. I also think you got a guy who's in there right now, and if you Wally Pip a bunch of dudes, that can lead to problems in the locker room. I mean, look, it's a performance business, but Christensen's actually playing well, right? It's not like he, I don't know, man. You brought back 9 guys who had been here. One of them's probably done for the season, if not most of the season in Hunt. And, the other guys are stepping up, and I think they feel pretty good. I mean, look, they brought 2 guys off of 2 other practice squads, and those guys are playing special teams for them right now, and they're active on game days. Like, I mean, I don't know, man. That one's a future debate, but I do think that they're going to take the length of the 21-day practice window with Corbett. There's no reason not to at this point.
That seems natural. Real quick, let's do the other good problem to have before we preview the Jets. How many times is that just like literally the company line when we talk about Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle? That is the quote and the phrasing that I've heard more than anything else with Dave Canales, but also offensive coordinator Brad Idzik and other players, like even the players themselves, Rico and Chuba. It's like, and I hear it and I understand the logic. They're both 1,000-yard guys a year ago. They both have shown that they can be really great. And it is a problem because having to divvy up the carries is a real consideration that this coaching staff makes. But ultimately there are worse problems to have. And they're kind of indicating that it would be worse if they only had one of them. Well, maybe, but the only time that they've had one of them is when they've had record-producing games on the ground. Like, I think that, and we had a robust discussion about this last week, but like even Rico said, not in direct answering of the question of pairing him and Chuba together, but he did say, yeah, there is something to feeling out the game. There is something to getting hit a couple times and learning what is working and what isn't. It's ultimately why after halftime of the Dolphins game, he went to Dave Canales and said, hey, call this play for me. And it was like this zone run that yielded 53 yards and really just set the tone for the rest of the game for the Panthers. Like this good problem to have thing, like it's another week of questioning, hey, is Chuba going to be the starting back when he comes back? I personally, Alex Zietlow, thinks that you ride the hot hand of Rico Dowdle as much as you can, even if Chuba does come back this week. I wouldn't do the 60-40 thing. I would try to make Rico a legit running back one, and maybe they switch running back one responsibilities throughout the year. I still think Chuba's a really good runner, by the way. Man, I don't know. I don't know. What do you think about this good problem to have mindset? Is there? I know you espoused it as well last week, but did the performance against the Cowboys change that at all?
Well, I think it'd be naive to think that Chuba Hubbard wouldn't have success against 2 pretty crappy defensive blocking. What I would say
would the team run production be as good if you don't have if you're constantly like messing with the rhythm of both of those guys? It's kind of.
I don't think he would have had the same level of success as Rico just because of who the opponents were. I think if you're facing a really good north to south running team, you should use Rico. And if you're playing more of a finesse team that sets the edge well, you should play Chuba. I think good coaching is being nuanced and being fluid and saying, listen, we're playing the Jets this week. Quinnen Williams, is a mountain of a man. We're not going to want to run at him. Let's run outside. Cool. Who does that favor? Rico Dowdle. Also, you've got Chuba coming off a pretty significant calf injury that cost him 2 games. Like, let's onboard him. I think something that's smart that this this new medical staff or this new training staff has done is they are taking their time. I was impressed that they didn't rush Jalen Coker back after a week of practice. I know that the fan base didn't love it, but they didn't need him evidently in this game. And you know what? I think he benefits from being onboarded, and I talked to him about it too, and he concurred. So like, I think it just depends on matchup, man. Like there are like four, no, I don't want to say that. There are probably like 8 to 10 true RB1s in the league, if that. And I think playing the matchups is smart business. I also think it helps avoid being keyed in on knowing strengths and weaknesses. I do think Rico does have downsides to his game. I think, there are times if the blocking's not there, he's not going to necessarily make a guy miss and do stuff like that. Like, Chuba to me is a guy who doesn't lose yardage. And I think against a good run defense, you'd rather have the guy who can pick up 3 as opposed to the guy who has the potential to lose 2. And so, again, I think there needs to be context here. I think Rico's been terrific. But I also think, like, there are going to be times where you want that ground and pound sort of Chuba Hubbard type back where you're not making any mistakes, you're getting positive yardage, you're staying in sequence. I also think Chuba's been injured for a while, man. Like, he has not looked good since week 1. And I don't know for a fact that he was injured in Arizona, but he has not looked like Chuba Hubbard since week 2. And so I think that's compounded things. I also think people always want to jump towards the flashy thing. I've seen people be like, do you think Chuba Hubbard will be traded? Absolutely not. He is the cornerstone leader that this team wants. And as a player has told me multiple times, do not conflate captainship with leadership. And I think he's a guy that Dan Morgan and Dave Canales look at as, like, if you said, give me an example of who you want a Panther to be in mentality, in playing style, and whatever, I think Chuba's right up there. He's a cornerstone player. I also think Dave Canales has said it multiple times. He wants 2 starters at running back because the position is so volatile and it's very injury prone. We've seen Rico Dowdle.
Yeah.
We've seen Rico Dowdle tighten up because of his calves. He's had to take a blow, right? And as good as ETN, I think, has been in his minor role, Chuba Hubbard is a better player right now. And I think, like, again, I've covered a lot of, like, I don't want to say flash in the pan guys, but I've covered a lot of guys who have surged for like 2 or 3 games and then fallen in the background once teams figure them out. I think having these 2 starting running backs is a blessing for this team and truly a good problem to have because they can do other things, right? Like, I'd never bought the whole, like, they've got similar styles. Yes, they're both violent runners. Yes, they can take a hit and they churn. They're different styles, in my opinion, and I think they complement each other very well.
Man, hey Mike, I'm proud of you for your optimism and your, like, saying, "Hey, the Panthers are in a good spot with this running back crew."
I just say what I see.
Yeah, no, 100%. Let's move on to the New York Jets, where the Panthers are going to be traveling to. The Jets are 0-6. They allow 28.3 points a game, which is not very good, but they are actually not that bad if you look at their defensive ratings. They're not that bad as a red zone defense. On third down, statistically, they're about middle of the pack when it comes to that in the NFL. We talked about the run game. They give up 130 rush yards a game. That's 23rd in the league. Not great, but not as bad as this 0-6 record would kind of make it seem. They average 5 yards a rush. They have on offense 137.7 rush yards per game. Not very prolific in the pass game, but Justin Fields is known to be like a really dynamic quarterback when things go right for him. Like, I don't really know what to make of this Jets team, man. They are 0-6. They're winless, but then again, in 2023, the Panthers were 0-6 and they defeated the Houston Texans somehow in their own place. The NFL has much more parity than a lot of people give it credit for. I don't know, man. I have a prediction of my own. Do you want to go first this week?
This is the Trevon Merrick game.
Oh, Okay, I love this prediction. Go on.
I'm guessing that he's going to spy Justin Fields. And if Justin Fields can't run, he is done. Like, I mean, I watched the Jets play the Broncos before this game on Sunday, and I got to tell you, that offense is an utter disaster. To put it in perspective, Bryce Young threw for 70 yards on the opening drive of the second half. Justin Fields finished with 45 passing yards in the entire game.
Mm.
And the Broncos have a great defense, don't get me wrong, but I mean, he was sacked a bunch. He holds onto the ball very, very long. I think Nick Gordon gets his first sack in this game. And I think Merrick, they're going to use him as a blitzer. They're going to use him as a spy. I don't really like the idea of using Trevin Wallace as a spy just because he's been so much better against the run and better in coverage, really, the last 2 weeks. I think you were going to see Merrick, if he was a peacock, this would be like when he shows his feathers. Like this is going to be the game where you're like, okay, yeah, you totally get why he was here. Or you say to yourself, wow, he got completely owned in this game and maybe they shouldn't have put so much on his plate. I do think this is a big game for him. I think, Garrett Wilson is reportedly going to be out too.
Right.
Quarterback response. They can't take these wide receivers lightly, but they also have very good matchups for Mike Jackson and J.C. Horn to bounce back. Breece Hall is a really good runner, but when your quarterback's not throwing the ball, I mean, you can just stack the box and he's going to take it. The reason why they're giving up 130 rushing yards a game is because they're constantly playing from behind. I think they're more of a middling defense that, like you said, than a terrible defense. This offense, though, is putrid, man. Like I don't think this is going to be a 31 rushing yard game, but I think they can hold them under 120 rushing yards. And I do think, listen, if they can clamp down on the pass and make this team one-dimensional, they have no answers. The offensive line's banged up. Again, Wilson's not there. Al Lazard does not scare you. But again,
does it scare Alex Zietlow or the Panthers?
I mean, it shouldn't scare either. This has all the makings of a massive trap game. And I worry that they're going to lean so heavily on the run and maybe that gets stopped early and then it becomes like a passing window for them. Remember, I mean, they still have Sauce Gardner. They still have all these. I mean, they do have talent on defense. Like Jermaine Johnson's awesome and he's just coming back from injury. So like, they're going to put up a fight defensively. We know that. We know this game's probably going to be big for Wilkes, right? Both on his current position, but also there's the history, right?
Mm-hmm.
Offensively, they're dog dudes. Like, if they score more than 20 points, I will be stunned. I'm trying to look at their average is. I just had it. Where to go? Points per game. So they average 20.5 points per game. I would be stunned if they hit that mark. Yeah, just the way they're flowing to the ball, the way they're playing. Like, I see this as a 24-17 win for the Panthers.
24-17. We're very similar. I think it's a 21-14 win for the Panthers because, to your point, this does feel like a trap game. To your point, Bryce Young is 1-15 in previous road starts, which is tied for the worst all time in the NFL. I think he's going to get a win to ultimately help take some of that weight off his shoulders. But hey, you got to prove that you can win on the road, and I think they will do that. Mike, I think we did a great job with this podcast. Anything else that we missed before we hit this outro?
So last week I called that. I don't remember if it was on here or somewhere else. I definitely said on here that T-Mac would get his first touchdown.
You did.
And I think I said that he would get 2 of them. I'm trying to remember if I said that on.
Do you remember if he had 2? Zach Dennis, our producer, is verifying right now.
But I ultimately
Zach says 2. Zach says
okay. So I said so. Here, I'm going to call my shot again here.
Okay.
Mitchell Evans and Tommy Tremble will both score touchdowns in this game.
2 tight end touchdowns.
This is going to be a tight end game, I think.
Okay. And that's just because, why are you feeling that? You think the Panthers will be in the red zone a lot?
I think for one, Sauce Gardner is going to be a tough challenge for McMillan.
Sure.
And I think Jalen Coker's making his way back, but I also think Jalen Coker coming back opens things up for the tight ends. I think the way the running game is, linebackers are going to have to buy into play action fakes, so are safeties. I think in the red zone, we're seeing that Bryce has a lot of confidence in his big targets. I think Mitchell Evans is... I got to tell you, it's night and day with Mitchell Evans from training camp. He was not playing particularly well in training camp, but it seems like he's a gamer and he is playing very, very well.
Yeah.
I think Tommy Tremble is a guy who's been vastly underrated throughout his career. People try to compare him to Ian Thomas. I don't think he's that guy. I think he's going to earn a bunch of looks in this game because of how well he blocked the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so I think he's going to be on the field a lot, and I think they're going to have Jatavian Sanders out there, and I think it's going to open things up for both the other two guys who are going to be the more traditional tight ends.
Well, you heard it. Mike is calling his shot, and we're out of here. Thanks, as always, for listening to our pontifications on all things Panthers with Mike Kaye and myself and our wonderful producer, Zach Dennis. Please subscribe and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts by searching Processing Blue. And if you watch us on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to get notified whenever new episodes drop. And finally, please be sure to stick to charlotteobserver.com for all of your Panthers needs. Mike, stay humble, stay creative, and keep processing.
That's a wrap.